Ladies and gentlemen, here to present Podcash, the one speakers really need to listen to. Please welcome to the stage, Lou Diamond, CSP.
Everybody get up! Everyone's been sitting for hours. Stand up. Can you hear me? Clap along, come on, clap. Come on. There we go. All right. Oh, this is excellent. Hello, everyone. How are we doing? We made it to the end here. Awesome. All right. I'm very excited to be here.
Can you believe this guy? I do all the amazing openings for his freaking top-rated podcast, Thrive Loud. What do I get in return? The pleasure of voicing his intro for the NSA Winter Conference in Orlando. Seriously? That's it?
Guys, I think your hot mic is on over there. Steve, is your mic still on? Can you shut it off, maybe?
I mean, come on. Podcasts, the one speakers really need to listen to? Does Lou know Friends ended 18 years ago?
Steve, your mic is on. Can you hear me? Can you shut it off? Maybe?
What? Lou?
Yeah, Steve?
Hey, can you hear me, buddy?
Oh, now I'm your buddy. Yes, everybody can hear you loud and clear, Steve. It seems that your mic is on. Can we turn it off? They're waiting, to get to the bar after me, so can we get this going?
Well, then I guess we can call this mic test successful. You're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Lou Diamond.
Ladies and gentlemen, give a thanks to Steve O'Brien. Thank you, Steve O'Brien.
Don't mention it. Do you mind a pro tip?
Oh,
You're one of the last speakers before the open bar, so chop chop. This crowd looks thirsty. They're gonna need a drink after you speak.
You know how hard it is to find good voiceover talent these days? Brian, can you see me after the workshop?
You got it.
Yes, all right. All right, well, seriously, welcome everybody. Thank you for your patience, long day. Yes, Friends ended 18 years ago. But I thought, since we were amongst friends, that this was the perfect topic to discuss so we can have an open, friendly conversation about the stuff that you really need to hear as speakers as it relates to podcasts. So I'm going to come through a different set of questions other than what Michelle had. I've got a who, why, where, what, and how. And this is specifically around what you need to know on how to monetize this space of podcasting. Let's kick things off here. I know Steve also was involved in the making of my slides, so this is probably going to get even more embarrassing here. Who am I? Some of you didn't get the intro. I didn't get the fun intro from Brian. Brian, we're going to have to work on that later. So I am somebody who is a speaker and writer of connecting, and I'm also a sales and marketing consultant. But for the last 6 years, podcasting has been an integral component to my business. I have hosted dozens, and I mean dozens, of both public and private podcast programs. Public podcasts are the ones that you guys can hear on any of your players, Google, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it is. And private podcasts are podcasts that exist inside the walls of large companies. You see some of the logos up here, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Pfizer. My programming is actually playing inside the walls in a private podcasting network along with some other podcast content. So I've been doing a lot of podcasting, and I've been doing a lot of interviews. I have interviewed over 1,200 leaders across the globe, and each week there are thousands of weekly listeners and millions of downloads. And all of it's kind of cool, but it's not nearly what I'm most proud of. What I am most proud of is that by being a host, I've generated significant revenue both from my speaking and from my consulting business. Enough about me. I want to focus on you, because podcasting is an interesting space. And when Shep came to me and said, Lou, I want to talk about podcasting, I don't want to talk about hosting. That wasn't what I wanted to talk about. Being a podcast host, just a show of hands here, how many of you host your own podcast program? Okay, there's a lot of you, and I'm sure they're awesome programs, and it's been part of your business, and you're trying to figure out how to make money out of it. That's great. But for many of you, it isn't necessarily a good thing to be a host. It might not fit into your schedule. It might not fit into all the different things you do. It might not fit with your brand. So when I was talking to Shep about what we were going to talk about, I said, I don't want to talk about making money as a host. What I want to share is the way that I want to help you. This is all about help. We're all about friends. This whole session is for me to give you everything you need to know so that you are helped. I am your best friend here today. That's the theme, okay? With me? You're on board with this? Everyone want to be my friend? Some of you, maybe? Okay. So what we're going to actually cover is why you should consider where you need to go, what you need to do, and how you need to be to make money as a podcast guest. All right? How many of you want to be a guest on a podcast? Give me a hoo-ha. Okay. Here's the deal. I've sat on the other side of the microphone watching guests come on my program, and I have been floored with how they have optimized what they're doing in that seat. The way they're promoting their business, the way they're making revenues, the way they're selling themselves, the way they market themselves, the way that they look at the opportunity as a guest to make money. And I looked at that and I saw a whole bunch of different ways to do it, and I wanted to lump them all together into the best practices. Because a lot of people, many of the people in this room, get an opportunity to be a guest, but don't take advantage of it and don't optimize it. What you're going to learn from me today is that it's such an unbelievable opportunity because what's happened in podcasting that you're going to figure out ways that you definitely should consider this. Okay? With me? That's what we're going to cover. All right. I'm going to give a couple of clarifications to start here. First of all, I want to clarify the big thing, and that is when I say the word podcast guest, I am also referring to these terms. These are other ways that you can be a guest. It could be a Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn live presentation, a fireside chat you get invited to. You appear on a virtual panel. You're featured in Clubhouse, like in Breakfast of Champions. I know a lot of you go into that room or whatever room you go into Clubhouse, YouTube or broadcast television. Any of the tips I'm going to provide today, you can apply to these mediums. But I'm focusing on podcasting for two specific reasons. One, it's the one I know the most about. And two, as you soon are going to learn, it is where the most opportunity is to put money in your pocket. Let's hit that, why that is. Got some font issues, but that's okay. I apologize. Why be a guest on a podcast? If you're streaming at home or you're here right here, shout out. Why be a guest on a podcast? Exposure. Brand awareness. What did you say? Position as an expert. Street cred. Ego. Because you got time on your hands. Christine Cashin asked that question. Normally, you would all be correct any day. These are all great answers. But today, amongst my friends here at the NSA Winter Workshop in February of 2022, there is only one reason why this audience is going to be a guest on a podcast. And that's to get hired for more speaking gigs. I know you wrote your book and you're all excited to come on the podcast and promote it and sell it and get all the copies out there, but most of you wrote the book so that more people would hire you for speaking gigs. I know you got your online course, your YouTube program, whatever it might be. Those are your speaking gigs, and that's what you're trying to promote and sell. And if you're a coach or a consultant, that's using the spoken word and getting paid, and that's what you're coming and you're promoting when you go on the show. And you have to understand that that's the main focus. You're going in here for all the things you said, but the main goal for this audience is to get hired. I want to drill down a little bit more into this why. I'm going to give you some numbers here. I don't have all the brilliant mathematicians running in Jason Dorsey's world, but we did a little research ourselves as to why podcasting has become so incredible the last few years. This is a study from the 2021 Podcast Insights. And it said basically that currently in the United States, there are 2 million active podcasts with 50 million episodes underneath it. More than half of the United States last year listened to one podcast. Almost a quarter of them listen to a podcast each week. And then there are 16 million people that we call avid podcast fans. Sorry, I might keep getting cut off here, but avid podcast fans, and those podcast fans, folks, are the ones I want to talk about. We did some research, and there was a lot of extensive studies done on this group. This is what we found. These people, which we're calling podcast listeners, they are seeking new ideas and inspiration. Anyone know where we can get some of that? They are made up of owners of businesses, founders, C-level executives, and senior managers, more than half of them. They're active on every social media platform, and they are more likely to follow companies, brands, and thought leaders on social media. So, the people that follow you like to be inspired by you and own the budget to hire you. Listen to podcasts. So the only question I have for you guys is, shouldn't they be inspired in listening to you? The people who listen to podcasts hire speakers. In fact, by the way, in that manager level, there's a huge number of them that are event planners, managers, speaker bureau folks. They are listening. This is all about getting in their ears so that when they think of who they're going to hire, they hire you. And how are they going to hire you? They need to hear you. And how could they hear you? By going on a podcast. All right, with me so far? Everybody with on the why? I know it's late in the day. Everybody's got to be excited to say that I'm going to be off the stage real soon. But here's the story, what you need to know. Where do you need to go to do this? Where can we go, and where are the shows that we need to be on? This is really straightforward. I want to give this quick math piece here. The shows you're looking to go after have to have a large audience. You want a lot of people who, within that audience, are the ones that are going to hire you. The top 2% of podcasts have an average of 3,200 listeners per episode. One of my shows has something close to 14,000, and some of you may have even have surpassed that with the numbers that you have, right? But 2%, remember that $2 million number? That's 40,000 shows to choose from that you guys can go on. That's a really wide net. How the heck are you going to figure out which ones to go on? Remember, I'm your friend. I'm here to help you and give you the answers. Come on, yes? Come on. Yes or yes, right? Someone else says that often here. You want to guest on shows that. You love words like guest. They're like a noun and a verb. Like the word host is a noun and a verb. Guest is a noun and a verb. It's like a new verb. There's another word I heard about that. It starts with the letter F. Tammy. Friend. You could be somebody's friend. You could friend someone in social. God, you are sick. Okay. You want to guest on shows that. One, our interview format. Interview format is a one-on-one interview. You are the star. Literally, the show producer or the host of the show is going to put your picture on the podcast artwork, and they're going to feature you and send it all over social. You are the star. That's the place that you want to be as a guest. You don't want to be on group shows or other things. You want the one where they feature you. They produce one show a week, at least. We do 3 shows a week on the Thrive Loud podcast because we're crazy. 3 shows a week gives a ton of exposure, and we promote every single one of those guests. But that frequency of guests is the most important thing for you guys. You want to go on shows with more than 150 episodes and have a dedicated podcast website. You can go on shows that are less than 150 episodes, but the ones that meet the criteria to get the 3,200, you're safer in this space. It's not to say you can't do it. Go on those shows. Some of them are great. Some of them are new and upcoming, and they might be right in your particular focus area, but try to keep it to this part. They have a dedicated podcast website. This has to do with searching. When people who are hiring speakers and looking for people, the listeners, they know exactly your page. The podcast host is actually acting as your promotion arm. They are promoting you on the shows that they're on, which is awesome, right? So you have literally someone's doing your promotion for you. So you want to go on the shows that have a dedicated podcast website. And they actively promote on social. I mentioned we promote every single guest across whatever social channel the guest wants us to. And I am not alone in this. The top shows do this because it helps them get more listeners and connect to their audience. But the most important thing about deciding where you want to guest on a show is that you want to guest on a show that is in your lane. I am not the only speaker who has stood on this stage and has said, you need to stay in your lane. But podcasting is by far the most effective medium in helping you understand where the lines are painted, as it turns out to be what lane you should be in. This, you don't need to turn your phone and take a picture of this. I'm going to send this file to everybody that's registered to this event, who's watching it on the stream or whatever. You're going to get this list. So you don't have to take the snap because you'd be Zooming for hours if you wanted to get this. We researched and found all of the podcasts that fit the criteria I just listed. 3,200 listeners, what lane they are in. They promote on all the social channels. They have their own podcast dedicated website. All of this, we did the homework for you, and we are handing it to you. Do you speak about wellness? There's a better living lane for you. You want to go into this lane, and you want to go into many of these shows as you possibly can. If you're in entrepreneurship, you're just like in the small business lane, if you would, that Ramon Ray is in. These are the types of shows you want to go on. Look at the leadership bucket. HR, marketing, management, continuing on. There's sports coaching, sales, mindset, success. Every one of these has its own bucket. There's literally every possible window you could think of that meet this criteria. And you could find them all on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. They spell them out for you. You want to be the go-to guest in your lane, and you want to be top of mind. You want to be in the ears of the listeners. Now I'm going to share with you what some people are doing and putting this to work right now. This is Jonathan Sackett. Jonathan Sackett is an advertising executive, really successful guy in that space, worked in some big advertising firms, and he's a speaker specifically in the marketing space. In 2021, he went on 20 podcasts just in the marketing lane, in this box. He had this list. He actually was on a couple of shows more than once. What happened? By the end of the year, he was hired 5 times by listeners that listened to programs and found him on these podcasts. 2 of them were for consulting gigs, 3 of them were for speaking gigs, for him focusing just on one lane. He was the go-to guy on this, and everybody knew about him, and he was in everybody's ear. And he picked his lane, and he stuck with it, and he bombarded it. Everybody knows this guy. Clint Pulver, if you're not familiar with him, Clint Pulver is the undercover millennial. I know the Mountain West people are shouting back there. And he's also a professional drummer. Clint wrote a book last year called I Love It Here. And he went ballistic when it came to going on podcast guesting. I believe he went on close to 100 shows. But he had many more lanes than Jonathan did. So he actually went after all the different lanes that he went into, and he then got booked and booked and booked. And last March and April, this is what the calendar looked like for episodes that Clint Pulver had an episode, what we call in podcasting, drop. When the episode drops, when it comes live for you, the listeners, to hear, 17 separate days, Clint Pulver's episode came out. 17 separate days it came out. And what's amazing is this is unbelievable, and you heard him on all different shows, but what was even more amazing was what happened from this. This is what happened. This is Clint's booking schedule last year, August and October. There are 25 items listed up there. 4 of them came from the shows that he was on in March and April from listeners that heard his story as he was a guest on the podcast. That's 4 speaking gigs from a very effective method. Does everybody see how this could work? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Trying to wake you guys up. Isn't this amazing, right? Okay. So everyone like this plan and want to kind of figure out what they need to do to possibly maybe mimic or copy or do this or highly listen to these suggestions? All right. Everyone's so tired. I know. You're great. Okay, what do you need to do? You want to go on these podcasts, right? So how do you go on these podcasts? What should you do? Ask. You ask to go on the podcast. We, as podcast hosts, love to have people ask us to come on the program. We're not afraid to have it. We actually sometimes are looking for really good speakers to come on the program. And guess what? Professional speakers who are thought leaders and some of the smartest and brilliant minds in the entire world That's good for our listeners. We love that. And guess what? It's a podcast. People listen to it. You are professional speakers. You're really good guests. We have some people that are like hermits that hid in the closet and don't come out or don't talk to people. They're not as engaging to listen to. And what's great about this is we want to do this because our listeners want to hear you, and our listeners are the people that hire speakers. Okay? And once you've been on a podcast program, ask the host to recommend you. We love it. We have our little podcast club, our podcast host. We kind of like horse trade you people. We'll be like, I'll take one Ramon Ray for one Tammy Evans. Like, will you take him? I've never had this one. It's like a baseball card thing. Got it, need it, got it. We want you guys on the program. And we have our little club that we talk about because we know that great speakers make great for our audience, and our audience loves it, and they listen, and those listeners are the people that hire speakers, which is going to help you, which helps us, and we're very good, and we're giving, and we're friends, so we love this, right? Okay, if you don't have time, there are many services out there. I'm going to provide a few in that little show note gift bag I'm going to give you of firms that book people on podcasts. Some are great, some are not so great. That's for you to judge, and we can't really stand by all of them, but I'll give the ones that I know have worked well with me. Okay. You need to sound and look spectacular when you're a guest on these podcast programs. It's 2022. Each of you have home studios, virtual studios that rival like professional recording studios at major networks. It's unbelievable. We had conversations yesterday over dinner over cameras and settings and different angles and sound systems and soundboards. You guys have the most incredible setups I've ever seen in my entire life, way better than I have in my own podcast show. So you are going to sound spectacular. You're already there. You're going to have the microphone and all of that. I will say one thing. AirPods, please do not be a guest on a podcast show with AirPods. Thank you. People, that's all the podcast hosts clapping, because what happens, you don't know this, the battery in the podcast AirPods basically starts to die, and now all of a sudden you can't be heard and you sound real garbled, and the listeners don't really get to hear the greatness things of you, and then they won't hire you because they didn't hear the best version of you. So you want to sound spectacular. You also want to look spectacular, even though you all look spectacular. You all do. You really do. But on a podcast today, you should assume that it isn't just audio. We do some video, some audio, and in fact, we will actually use video to promote the podcast episode and create like a sizzle reel with it, which is a great tactic for hosts. You can see me later about different ways to do that. So you should go on the podcast ready to be on camera. With me? Sound, look spectacular. Okay. It's a pretty good idea to go listen to the show of the guest you're going to go on before you go on it. There's 150 episodes at least of what I'm suggesting. Okay, go listen. There's a formula to their show, a format, a cadence. They ask silly questions like, what's your favorite movie? Or, what's your favorite thing to eat? Or whatever it is. Go listen and see what it's about, because you're going to be that much more prepared when you go on the show. The other thing you need to do is follow the host on social. It's not about us wanting followers. We want followers. But it's really about connecting the guest and the host so that when your episode launches and they push it out through social, it gets the most engagement, it connects with the listeners, and the listeners are the people that hire speakers. With me. Follow them on social. Listen to their show. Promote your episode. Oh my God, I can't even begin to tell this. This is the opportunity. You have a chance to connect to 3,200 people. I forgot to ask you this question. How many of you would like to speak to 3,200 people? Okay, this is your chance to do it. And you should be promoting it to people, because this is a really good conversation you're having with a show that actually puts money into making sure it promotes and gets listeners. You should treat it as such. And you should put your episode on your own personal podcast, your own personal website on your site. Like, here are the places I have recently been a guest. Jonathan Sackett took all those 20 podcasts that he was on from his website and forwarded emails with the link to all 20 of those episodes, which they could easily click on and play, and say, listen to me on all these different programs and check me out. And at least 2 of those 3 speaking gigs came from that send-out that he did, which is amazing. Okay. That's what you have to do. Now I'm going to quote Ryan Reynolds from the movie Deadpool. I think he played Wade Wilson. Who's a fan of Deadpool? Just give me a couple of claps here. All right, you can clap to that one, right? I think he says, "Now for the moment I've all been waiting for." How you need to be as a podcast guest. There's a lot of people in this room I've actually interviewed, some that I know I'm going to be interviewing, and there's a lot of other speakers in NSA that have been on my show and every other show. And some of you have absolutely crushed it, knocked it out of the park. You were unbelievably engaging. You were enticing to listen to. You were the type of thing that our listeners will say, I want to hire that person to speak at my company. And then there are some of you that feel like you just kind of mailing it in. A lot of you actually are promoting a book or a program or something, and you line up podcast after podcast after podcast after podcast. And by the time I get to you, and I'm interviewing you, and I get you on the air, and I'm like, hey, Christine, how you doing? And Christine's like, I'm doing great. I'm so awesome. I'm so excited to be here. That's not how you want to communicate, right, to everybody, right? I want you guys to think of the most important lesson I've learned to see the people who've monetized this the best, the ones you saw up here and other ones I'm going to share in a minute. When you go on a podcast program, I want you to treat the podcast guest like a keynote. I want you to prepare beforehand, do the exercises, know what the guest's about. You've listened to some of the information. You may be able to incorporate what you heard on a previous episode into that mix, just like many of the speakers have been doing here today. You want to get up here and give the best version of yourself, because this is an audition for the keynotes that you're hoping to get from the listeners who are going to hire you. So your opportunity is so huge. You're sitting there right in front of all the listeners that you're like, hey, you're all saying, I got to get a video, I got to get a clip, I got to get my website up. Let me make it clear, there are more people listening to podcasts connecting to you guys that are getting in their ears than are sitting in the room when you go speak to them. So you want to communicate to the big masses to funnel that back down so that you have the opportunity to do business with them, whatever you do your business with. Treat it like a keynote. And you need to turn off pitch mode. Podcast hosts know you're promoting your book. We know that you've got a new course that's coming out. We've received information beforehand. You probably queued us in beforehand. But you guys know this. In the parallel example here, if I were to come up on stage here, deliver a keynote, and I'm treating the podcast like a keynote, I would not start off walking out the gate and go, buy my book. And some of you have done it. Some of you come right in. Let me tell you why this book is the greatest thing in the world. We don't even mention the name of the book at this point. You want to treat this like it is a keynote, and you want to be spectacular. Clint Pulver, on his episodes, you can go listen to all 17 on that month there where they came out. Every single one of them, Clint is giving a mini version of the keynote that he delivers. He tells the story about the teacher that put the drumsticks in his hands. He talks about how he was nervous as a kid with ADHD and needed some focus, and how he became a drummer, and then how he really, as a millennial, wanted to work with managers. He's giving a lot of the messages on the way that he delivers it on stage. In some of the instances, because I don't know if you know this, Clint plays drums at his events. He played drums on podcasts. It was an amazing entertainment thing to listen to. And he's awesome in it. And he's lifted it up, and he makes it real exciting because the people that are listening love it, and they're excited, and the people listening to podcasts are the people that hire speakers. That's what you got to be. You got to be spectacular. Last thing you got to do is you got to connect with the audience. This is Helen Dan. Helen went to a workshop of mine several years ago. She is an executive coach in New York in the financial services space, and she works with executives in financial services companies. And last year, 2021, when the whole Great Resignation thing was happening, her clients were really dealing with the stress of all these people leaving and keeping retention issues. And we actually started chatting, and I said she'd be a great guest to have on the program to hear how she's coaching people through this. So I called her up and said, would you like to come on the program? She said, sure. At that time, Helen did not have a book to promote. She didn't have an online course or a coaching program that she was trying to offer. And in fact, actually, up until that point, Helen had never been a podcast guest. First time she was ever on a show. She comes on the show, we have a great conversation. Conversation ends, a few weeks later, the episode comes out, we promote it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, everywhere. Later that day, a phone rings, and it's Helen. And I pick up the phone. Am I dating myself by showing picking up the phone like this? Should I be going like this, right? We don't have phones like this anymore. Pick it like this. I go, Helen, what'd you think of the episode? And she goes, look at the email that I just forwarded you. Earlier that day, one of the listeners heard her episode and sent her this. Helen, spectacular job on the podcast. You were really so on point. I'd love to speak with you to talk about how you could potentially work with my organization. Let me know where it works best. This happened, by the way, on that day. Helen immediately connected with this guy. They had a conversation before she called me back. So when she called me on the phone to tell me she already had signed up for a 3-month trial coaching agreement with this client, which rolled over to a 6-figure annual renewable deal, which she just renewed again renewed it for the first time. Helen, on the phone, looks at me and says to me, Lou, how can I be a guest on more podcasts? Real simple, right? Why you should consider it? The people that are listening to podcasts are hiring speakers, and there's more and more listening every single day. More of your clients are in podcasting. Where you need to go? You need to go where the people are. You need to go into your lanes, and you want to focus on those lanes because that is where you're going to do the most business and where you're going to become top of mind and where people are going to look to hire you. What you need to do? Ask the guest to come on the show. You need to look spectacular, sound spectacular, promote the episode, and how you need to be is you need to treat being a guest on a podcast like a keynote. You do this, and you do this consistently enough. This formula is working. I only gave 3 examples of people who are making money on this. I know there are more, and I know that you guys can do a lot more than that. Because if I had the opportunity to speak to professional speakers on the phone as potentially hiring them, I know how good you guys are at branding your message, saying what you do, all the things you've even learned here these last day and a half. This is the stuff that you know how to do. You know how to promote yourself better than anyone. So here you have an opportunity to sit in the chair and make money as a guest. I hope that you listen to some of the things I say. You don't have to use all of them. Use them where they're applicable. I also hope that you listen carefully to yourself and the message that you deliver when you want to be authentic and the way that you deliver who you want to message yourself in this platform. But most importantly, I really hope to be listening to you on a podcast program as a guest in the very near future. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Lou Diamond. Lou.
I'm not done yet, though.
What's that?
I promised them an extra gift. Remember the whole deal?
Gift, yes.
Yeah, because
They have a gift.
Yeah,
Everyone likes a gift.
for those that. Okay, so how many of you want this bonus of how you can make money as a podcast listener? Yeah. Yes. All right. This is really unbelievable. We have done this, and this works. I want to give a quick shout out. Is Sam Richter in the building? Sam Richter. Everyone, clap it up for Sam Richter, who's like a genius.
I don't know why, but let's clap for him. That's right.
Sam Richter is partially responsible for what you're about to learn. So here's what you do. Okay, so step 1, you go to Google. That's google.com. Just seeing if you're awake. Okay, step 2, you're going to type the company name that you're interested in doing business with, the title of the individual you want to work with, CEO, chief CTO, head of HR, head of sales, whatever that person's title is. The word podcast, and then 18 months, the last 18 months. Here's the deal. Over the last 2 years, pretty much with 90% accuracy, if you type this in, the individual you're trying to seek has actually been on a podcast as a guest. And there's even a high probability now that he also probably has his own show. So you're going to go in, you're going to find an episode, and you're going to listen to it. Listen to the episode. Listen to what the guest has to say. what they care about, what their problems are, what their challenges are, where potentially you might be able to solve their problem as an amazing thought leader, an incredible speaker that you are, or whatever role you take on. Listen to the episode, and then what you're going to do is this. You're going to reach out with either a DM or a post on LinkedIn to both the host and the guest, and you're going to share what you liked about the episode. Ramon Ray, you were amazing on this episode. I loved what you had to say about taking the table out and setting up your own events and doing all that, right? Something of that nature. You do that, and then you send a connection request to the guest. So I mentioned to you that I do some sales, marketing, and consulting work specifically for unique types of companies, and a lot of them are like data technology companies. So we follow these 5 steps and laid them out for a tech company to go after their top 200 targets. They did. They sent it out, the role, the individual, the company, all this stuff. And by the way, they found 200 podcast episodes. There wasn't one miss. Every one of them had been on a program. This is going to wow you. 82% accepted the invitation to connect with the salesperson at this data technology company. And almost 2/3 of them were willing to have a meeting. They're data technology people. You guys are professional speakers and are the bomb. Everyone's going to want to talk to you, right? Just think what your numbers are going to be when you reach out to the people that you want to do business with. That is my gift to them. That was something I promised.
That's a great gift. That's a great gift. All right, we have time for approximately 1 question. So someone's going to go up there and go get the microphone. But here's the deal. Before you ask the question, you have to say, what is your favorite podcast or the podcast that you would like to be on? For example, I would say, if it was me, Speakernomics with host Tom Singer.
Yeah,
that's
Tom,
what I would say. And I would beg Tom to put me on, and then I would ask for advice. So that's what I would say. So what's your favorite podcast or the one you want to be on?
My favorite podcast is Speakernomics with Tom Singer.
There you go.
I finally met in the lobby today.
Tom, you could pay Brian later.
Or it's the murder one my daughter listens to that I listen to with her.
It's tough to get client work from that. Yeah.
So my question is about this pay-to-play model. I've been asked a lot to be a guest, and then you have a conversation, and then they slip in someplace, oh, by the way, there's a fee.
So for you to be the guest on the program?
What is your thought on that? I'm seeing that a lot more, or people say, well, I have a lot of followers, so you're going to have to pay to be on my podcast.
It's funny because I've actually seen it on the other direction as well. But
I've seen it both ways.
Yeah. My quick response to you on this is, look, you got to figure out what that audience is and if it's specifically who you need to get to. But what I will tell you, there are 40,000 podcasts with over 3,200 listeners, and not all of them are charging. And it's a decision you'd have to make on your own. But I think in most of those situations, you just have to know exactly the audience you're targeting, what else you're getting with it. I'm not saying no way, walk away from it. I would, but you may have an option, yeah. My personal choice, no, but you need to weigh all the options when you look at it. Is that a political enough answer for you?
Got it.
Okay.
And I would add, Tom would not charge you.
We have one more question.
Okay, one more question. Here we go. Fast, fast, fast. Favorite podcast or the one you want to be on?
Favorite podcast that I've been on and I listen to every week is the Influential Personal Brand Podcast with Roy and AJ Vaden.
They are good.
My question is in terms of lead, when you're on a podcast, I've been on a lot of them, what's your best practice around a lead magnet? Because I'm interested in tracking who's listening to the podcast that I'm on and how am I capturing them to be able to follow up with them to try to get business later? Or should you just let it be organic and wait for the phone to ring because you are a good guest on a podcast?
Spectacular question. So one of the things you're going to get from the kit for me is not only obviously the shows that are in this list, but we have a follow-up process on what you need to do. Not every one of the guests is going to give you, one of the hosts are actually going to give you all the information on who listened to the show. And for the record, a lot of us don't know. But what you can do is you can track and tag certain ways that you post it in social, and also when you place it on your website, you could also ask for the download link, and then you could actually have a track to when they hit it, when they click it. It's actually better to forward that out sometimes, like, hey, listen to my episode when I was on this program, than just sending a link to go to the show. So to direct it to where you put your episodes on your own business page. With me? Thank you.
Give it up one more time for the Mr. Lou Diamond, podcaster to the stars. That's right.